Okay, there might be managed by customers. So customer has to manage all these things. So they have to procure hardware, the network, right? They have to manage all this data center stuff. They have to hire some IT engineers to manage all these things, right? So this is basically giving some adding some more cost to what they have already, right? So let's say there are few small or medium sized enterprises that wanted to move their application to the cloud, right? That they are a very good candidate to check out these options. For example, infrastructure as a service, right? What it helps is it reduce your cost categories related to data center and compute. For if you see this second block, right, there are two color legends, sky blue and a black. So the things that are colored in a sky blue, for example, data center management, hardware and virtualization, these are covered by Microsoft. It is managed by Microsoft, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to manage all those things. What you need to manage is your OS, database, provisioning, patching, setting up the backups and high availability of these options, and finally your data and applications, right? However, when you choose platform as a service or a PaaS, you don't have to worry almost anything other than your application and the data. These are the only two things that you will be worrying about. So as you can see, let's go and see the things colored in a sky blue. Data center management, hardware, virtualization, OS patching, database provisioning, it's patching, scaling up, scaling down, setting up and configuring high availability, disaster recovery, backups. All these things will be taken care and managed by the Microsoft. So what we just have to, as a customer, we just have to move our application and data straight to the cloud, to the Azure, and it will be taken care. As I mentioned here, of platform as service offload customers' most administrative tasks to Azure, further improving efficiency with machine learning capabilities for performance and security. So there are two options given to you: single tone or single database. So that's a database level deployment for the new application. And then there is a managed instance, where instance level deployment for lift shift existing apps to Azure with fully backward compatibility. So in a slide further, we will be talking more about this managed instance things, and then the thing which is mentioned as lift and shift existing applications. Okay. So basically, how this is been designed or architect. So these are your applications on premise. There is a VPN gateway. We then further go to the SQL managed instance virtual network, where you have your managed instance subnets, application subnets, which are connecting and talking to the managed instance subnet. Then you have also VPN in VNet, virtual network integrated web app, VNet integrated web apps. These are the application VNet, which is, again, as you are seeing, it is separated, where your application service environment is there. So this is how the network is segregated from one another, and they are talking to each other. Right? So this is how the architecture or managed instances architect. So it is secure and safe. Right. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, right, it is secure because it is fully isolated. Let's see it one more time. So these are managed instance VNet, web app, VNet for web app or applications. Those are isolated network, and that is why it is very much secure. So it is native virtual network implementation and connectivity to your on-premise environment using Azure Express Route or VPN gateway. So it is fully isolated and secure. Default deployment, the SQL Server endpoint is exposed only through a private IP address, allowing a safe connectivity from private Azure or hybrid network, right? So it is, talking to only those who are needing the data. That is why it is considered a fully isolated and secure environment. So when you deploy your application and your data to the managed instance, it is very safe. You don't have to worry about your data being stolen or anything, right? Single tenant with dedicated underlying infrastructure, compute and storage. Okay, let's talk about some benefits of platform as service. So this is the table where I have listed few points, right? On premise and Azure. So when you are on premise, you will have to purchase and manage the hardware entirely. In Azure, it is built in, scale up or scale down on demand. While you are on premise, you will have to protect your data with backups. Again, you have to do various health checks, and you will have to retain your data for the for the sake of some troubleshooting or restoring your database to see if they are working, those kind of things, right? But in Azure, you don't have to worry about that. Azure will give you the point in time restore facility. High availability implementation. When you are on premise, you will have to do all these things yourself. You have to set up the data center, configure the high availability. So for example, if something goes wrong with one of your server, the secondary server will take up the role of the primary, and your application will start running smoothly as it was earlier before any mishap happened, right? So you have to manage that when you are on premise, but with Azure, it is built in. 99.9% of SLA is given, and auto failover facility is also given. So again, when you are on premise, disaster recovery implementation is something that you will have to take care on your own, right? So probably some different geolocation, you will have to set up the DR servers, so that something goes wrong with one of your premise, at your premise, data center is crashed, you can switch over all your applications and all your data into the disaster DR servers, and then your application will start running again. But with Azure, it is built-in geo redundancy and geo replication that will help you point your application within a few seconds. So yeah, it is a great feature. And again, with on-premise, you will have to do it on your own. With Azure, it is built in, so you don't have to worry about it. When you are on premise, what you will have to do is you will have to ensure compliances with standard on your own. So this is something I called about the best practice. Best practices for the very organizations. Plus, there are some government or governing bodies which have some standards or set of rules that you need to adhere. Right. So those things you will have to manage. Those compliances you have to ensure that it is adhered. But with Azure, when you choose a region, when you choose to go to the Azure, these features are built in, and it is very easy to use. Right. So you don't have to worry about setting up policies and all those things. It will be taken care already. Secure your data from malicious users and mistakes. Right. So when you are on premise, you will have to take care of your data being stolen from malicious users, from mistakes. All the things is taken care by the Azure, by the Microsoft. Then there are things like rollout updates and upgrades. So uh, every few whenever a new product is coming up, Microsoft will release uh, patches or cumulative updates at regular intervals to keep your data secure, which we always want, which all the customers always want to have their data secure, the applications to be secured, the servers to be secured. So they will have to roll out all the updates and upgrades on your own for all the servers, right? These things is really, I mean, easily taken care by the Microsoft, so you don't have to worry. Monitor, troubleshoot, and manage the server's data, its usage, the patterns, all those things that you will have to manage when you are on premise is taken care by the Azure, the Microsoft. And lastly but not least, tune and maintain for predictable performance. Right. So this is also, I mean, you will have to manage on your own, find out, identify the queries, workload that are giving you some performance issues, and then resolve it. But Azure gives it you built-in and easy to use feature. If you see the previous slide here, um, yeah, at the top you are seeing green colored, which has mentioned as intelligent performance and security, right? So that it is led by machine learning capability, which identify and do tune up for your use for yourself, right? So it is very so that is why, I mean, I would recommend going to and using the Azure platform as service, product as service, be it a singleton database or managed instance as it deemed necessary, or you find it good for yourself. But yeah, these are some of the benefits of having product as service or platform service. There are few options, right? As I mentioned, I was mentioning singleton, unmanaged, managed instance. Here are the total 3 options which are given. Single or singleton, so it is database scope deployment option with the predictable workload performance. So it is best suitable for the apps that requires resource guarantee at the database level. So for example, your application is designed in a such way that it is using a single database. Your workload is also predictable. Say for example, there are 10,000 transactions happening per month. Application vendor or your application development team has given you the fixed numbers, like, okay, we will be good if we have this much of resources available for our application, for our database. So yeah, fine, you can go with this singleton or single database. It will be very much easy and best for you to go with that option. Then comes the elastic pool. So when you have the databases, multiple databases, connecting to your application, or your application is using multiple databases, using the workload is not specified. It can scale up, scale down. You don't know which database uses how much of resources. In those kind of thing, situation, elastic pool will be very much beneficial, because it will be sharing the resources optimized for greater efficiency of multi-tenant applications, based for software as service kind of apps with multiple databases that can share resources at the database level, and it will achieving a better cost efficiency, right? Okay, but when if you are thinking about instance scope deployment options with the high compatibility with SQL Server, that can give you the benefits of all your on-premises features, like as I mentioned, right? Cross database queries. You have some ETL jobs that you will need to run using the SQL agent, all those stuffs, right? That will be given by the managed instance. So in case your application needs all these kind of things that that you are using at the on-premise, and still you want to use them uh, on the Azure as well, go for the managed instance, right? So let's discuss about why manage instance, right? So lift and shift. So it gives you a full-fledged SQL instance with nearly 100% compatibility with on-premise SQL server. So you can have your database backed up, move it to the Azure or cloud blob storage, restore your database, and you will be done, right? No other hassle for you. It will be very much easier to migrate your database. We will be discussing these options of migrating in the next section, but yeah, lift and shift, it's a very much easy to deploy your application and your data with the managed instance. It is fully managed, so high availability options are there. Then backups, as I mentioned earlier, point in time recovery, backup retentions are available to you. It is very much secure. So with the native VNet implementation, the managed instance is purely isolated, and it talks to only one private uh, endpoints and IP address defined. So it is very secure and isolated. So no one can install you can safeguard it from the malicious user. Business model, when it is very competitive, transparent, and frictionless. Managed instance generally comes in this 3-tier: general purpose for generic workloads for small or very less consumed workloads. Then there is a business critical applications or data where low latency workloads are guaranteed when you need a fast recovery, or you need you wanted to offload your read-only workloads, right? Go for the business critical tier. Then there is a hyperscale tier, which give you a flexibility of hosting your hundreds of terabytes of database, generally known as very large database. When you have OLTP kind of workloads with the heavy workloads, go with the hyperscale. By the way, if you want to read more about all these tiers or all these information that I'm mentioning here or are there in the slide, I will be sharing the reference material or reference link at the end of this slide, end of the presentation. Right. So the third section, how do you migrate? So as I mentioned, right, it gives you a flexibility of having the native restore. For example, you take your backup of your database, move it to the blob, restore it over using the URL. You can take a help of the database migration assistance. Again, this is a tool Microsoft offers. It is a very useful tool. I would recommend using the database migration assistant tool, because sometimes I have seen that some applications or the database server being upgraded from the some X version to X1 version in a customer end, but the compatibility level of that that database is still the backward. Now what happens that there are few things which are deprecated in the previous version and is not available in the next version. So those kind of things, the database migration assist will help you with that. Database migration services, and then the transaction replication or the log shipping. These are the few options that you can use to migrate your on-premise database and application to the Azure managed instance. So this is the about the native restore. So from SQL server on virtual machine or on premise, you take a backup to the Azure at storage account. Then you restore it using the URL to your SQL instance. And then you can start using your application by pointing your database to the newly restored database. It is that much simple and that much easy. You can also use transaction replication or the log shipping from on-premise to Azure managed instance, so that the cutover time will be very much lesser. Normally what is recommended, or what we do generally is we establish the log shipping. We having 15 minutes of interval for the log backup, and during the cutover time, which or the scheduled maintenance, what we do is we just bring that database at the secondary server, bring that up online, and point the application to the newly restored database on Azure. It's that simple. It's that easy. Right, so these are the few. These were the few things that I wanted to talk with you in regards of Azure managed instance. Let's go through the summary. Azure SQL managed instance is the base of SQL Server as a fully managed service with the versionless engine. Normally, the pages and all the stuff that is taken care by the Microsoft. All the SQL Server instance capability that you are familiar with your on-premise is still available with the Azure managed instance. So, and as I mentioned earlier, right, it is native VNet that secure your managed instance, your data, your application when you are using managed instance. All the performance capabilities and monitoring of SQL Server you need are given with the Azure SQL managed instance. Well, last but not least, migrate with almost zero downtime from SQL Server. As I mentioned in this previous slide, you can use replication and log shipping for that very purpose. You can also take a help of native restore right? So almost zero downtime from SQL Server. As I mentioned, here are some few reference materials. For example, if you go to the aka.ms Azure SQL fundamentals, you will be you will find the learning path. By the way, if you are not aware, Microsoft Virtual Academy is something that you would like to go visit. They are offering few courses, few certification courses as well. You can learn from there. Then I'm not sure if currently the offer is still on, but they are giving 50% discount something for the examination if you would like to schedule and go certified. I would definitely recommend you visit Microsoft Virtual Academy, learn and certify yourself. Well, if you would like to attend the SQL Server workshops, you can go to aka.ms SQL workshops. If you want to take a look at different tools they are offering, you can go to this URL aka.ms, choose Azure SQL. If you want to read something about the migration, data migration is the location where you would like to go. And then there are this documentation and the video links that you would like to refer if you want to go further, study, learn for the use, for helping your customers or for the safe learning. I'll be sharing this PPT so that these links are available to you. Again, if you are interested in topics such as Microsoft administration, optimal configuration, troubleshooting, HANDR, or cloud technologies, Azure, AWS, or Google, follow me on these social media accounts. And I'm open to questions if you have any. If you are feeling shy asking question in this session, you can browse this URL and send me a question. Please mention SURATi TechTalks 2022 in your message or question so that it will be easier for me to read them, and I will try to answer your question as soon as I can. Is there any question? Yeah.
I don't see any. I don't see any. Hello. 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 Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So I don't see any questions over here in the post panel. So it was a wonderful session, Hemantgiri. And I would like to advise everyone who is attending this particular session that the resource link that Hemantgiri has shared are really wonderful. I myself and my team are also using the same links to know about the new things of Azure SQL and also uh, being upgrading our skill like from mid-tier level to expert level and all those things. And those videos are there right from the experts who are working on the Azure SQL stuff. So those are really great, and it is highly suggested that you go and use those links. And also about the SQL workshop that is there on ak.ms Azure SQL workshop. Those workshops are really good that you can have hands-on practice with those things. And if you are into the Microsoft space and providing consultancy on Microsoft space, then definitely you would be definitely benefited by getting the certifications. And I would always like if the attendees of this particular session come together and work for the betterment of the SQL user group and the SURATi user group. And I would be happy to forward you any assistance that I can have in this particular regard. So definitely most welcome to share your thoughts and follow that for the betterment of Surat City. So once again, thank you, Hemant, for such a good talk. We'll be getting in touch soon again and hosting some other talks online apart from even TechTalks. So we will be closing this meeting over here and opening the meeting for the next session. So please join that session on that is to be given by Vishal Virani on next gen visual programming device. Which is the plotted start at next session is by Aishwarya Khanna, sorry about that, which is on DB migration tips and best practices. So please join that session at 12 noon, and we are going to close this meeting and start the next one right away. So you can join in. Thank you and thanks once again.